Good morning, Softball America. We're back. Season is here. We have our coffee. There's breaking news. What a time to be alive. We are so glad that you're tuning in here on the Softball America Podcast Network to Good Morning Softball America's Season 2 premiere. I am Gray Robertson, and I'm pleased to be on screen on the show with my co-host and the person who is like so perfectly qualified to talk about the breaking news, my dear friend, the luminous, the brilliant, the exceptional Tara Henry. Good morning, Tara.
Oh, good morning, Gray, and good morning, Softball America. It is so great to be back. I was just texting with Amanda Scarborough yesterday, just talking to her about, wow, like it's softball season. And then I texted Gray and I said, Gray, it's here. And I couldn't think of a better way to start us off this week, like you said, with breaking news. Obviously, Patty Gasso being named the head coach of the U.S. women's national team. And to start it off, the week of season, I couldn't think of better news for the sport of softball, Gray.
I couldn't think of better timing about 2 hours before we went on the air. Love that. Thank you, Coach Gasso and Team USA. That will be our opening story. We're going to preview the season. We're going to talk about everything, but we will, of course, discuss Coach Gasso to Team USA after we do a little housekeeping because, Tara, it's important that people do what? Subscribe. So I'm going to flash this up again. Tara, how can the people be a part of Softball America?
Absolutely. Yes. So if you're watching us now on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube page. Throughout the season, you'll be able to get all the updated podcasts there on YouTube. And then you can head on over to the site on3.com/softball. And let me tell you, I was just looking at the site earlier this morning preparing for our podcast today, and there's just so much information on the website. We've got such an incredible staff, which we'll introduce here in a little bit, Gray, but I could not be more proud of this team, of this staff, being a part of softball right now at this moment in history. And so please head on over to the site and let us know what you think. I know we've got suggestions from our subscribers, our viewers about some content. So would love to hear what you guys want up on the site as well.
We also want to hear from you throughout this show. The chat is open on YouTube. It should be anyway. So tell us where you're watching, what you're doing, how excited you are for the start of softball season, and say hey, and we'll flash the little thing on the screen and we'll comment on your questions if you know they're good questions that are actual questions. So yeah, we would love to hear from you as well. Subscribe. And here is the pod schedule for the year in case you missed the article, which is on the website right now. Here's what we've got. Good Morning Softball America will be every Monday right now, from now until the end of the season, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific. Am I getting my time zones right, Tara?
Yes, you got it. So it's hard for me. So great job.
Yeah, that honors college degree didn't get itself. Then Out of the Box will be an audio-only podcast that will be coming out every Tuesday or Wednesday morning, schedule dependent. Again, sometimes it's hard to get for Tom and I to get together to record based off of the travel schedule or Alabama's game schedule. But this week, the season premiere will be dropping Wednesday morning at 12:01 a.m. So it'll hit your feeds as you night owls are getting into bed or as you crazy people are waking up to start your day. So make sure that you tune into that as Out of the Box officially joins the Softball America Podcast Network.
Wait, aren't we going to have some maybe surprise video content from Out of the Box? Is that what I heard, Gray?
Well, I didn't want to get too ahead of myself, but yes.
Okay.
We will be.
Let the people know. They want to know.
It just means more shorts. Will be little videos that we gather on the road, immediate thoughts, immediate aftermath reactions to big news in college softball, things that happen on our trips, myself and Tom Canterbury. We'll probably put some of our restaurant recommendations on there. We've gotten great stuff from the coaches about where to go when we visit their cities. So we will probably put up some of that content as well. That'll all be available on the YouTube page, which maybe we'll have some stuff coming this weekend from Tucson.
Can't wait.
Who's to say? Sydney Spin is back with the great Sydney Supley, who just, by the way, I mean,
Oh,
applause. Big Ten Media Days, a smashing success.
incredible. Sydney Supley, every single team in the Big Ten, which there's 17 now, Gray.
So we've gone way past 10.
Big 10 is the Big 17. And Sydney Supley knocked it out of the park the last couple days, getting interviews from every single squad. And I hope you'll go back and watch them because they are so good. And it had me hyped heading into season. And I know that it was inspired by your media days, Gray, your SEC media days. So props to you for helping us get that into play. And hopefully we can have some more of those next season because I think they're great.
There are a lot of conferences out there.
Yeah, there are.
So, I mean, unfortunately, the Pac-12 isn't one of them. But maybe I'm sorry. Look, it's a new era. We got to get used to it.
6 minutes, 39 seconds for us to get to that. I was wondering how long it was going to take. I had it on my bingo card.
Sydney Spin is back with Sydney Supley talking to the biggest names in the Big Ten. That'll be every week. It premieres Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It will air every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, we've also got the dirt. Now, the dirt in the offseason was just, it was a lot of like me and Nicole reacting to the little softball news that there is in June, July, and August, and just kind of telling stories and talking about life. And there will be a lot of telling stories and talking about life on this pod as well. But now we kind of get to give, Nicole Mendez and I, our unfiltered thoughts, unfiltered to an extent. You know, I'm not going to be out here saying crazy stuff, but we're going to give our unfiltered thoughts on the season. And, you know, it's going to be probably the one show on this podcast network that legitimately doesn't have a rundown because we just kind of look at some of the big topics and see where the show goes, and it'll be a fun hour. So that premieres Wednesday, February 5th, and it will air every Wednesday night for the entire season.
Yep, incredible. I think for me, I know we had discussions about what podcasts were going to be on the network this year. And I think The Dirt brings that unfiltered and raw and wonderful reactions from both you and Nicole. So hopefully you all have been able to catch one of the Dirt episodes. And if not, make sure you catch them every week this year as well. We're keeping to a schedule, people, because we know people love a schedule. But I think if you haven't caught it, make sure that you check out both Gray and Nicole on The Dirt.
Yeah, and maybe this weekend I'll tell the story about how I like really busted up my knee this past weekend at a bachelor party. So that'll be fun. Look, sometimes you don't need to play one-on-one basketball all the time. Sometimes your prime is gone.
You're so tall, Gray. I would pick you on my team. I just throw the ball to you every time.
There was someone taller, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh, hey, Lauren, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Lauren's here with us this morning.
Yeah, we'll flash that. There you go. Hey, Lauren. Softball does start this week, as does Diamond in the South. This is our new show on the podcast network. This is hosted by Nicole Mendez. This is the SEC interview-centric pod. So the distinct difference between Out of the Box, which will, you know, it kind of is all-encompassing. It widens as the show goes on. Alabama SEC, interviews with media, you know, whatever national stuff you want to get into. Diamond in the South, hosted by Nicole Mendez, will be premiering this Thursday, and we'll be rolling every Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern time on the Softball America YouTube page. That's going to be Nicole giving her player thoughts on what she's seeing in the Southeastern Conference and talking to a lot of players and coaches around the league. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Welcome to the conference, Mindy. As we've discussed, it just means more. And, you know, we're excited to have Nicole covering the conference and saying that phrase on the air. Now it won't just be me. Which is good, you know, because that's going to be on my tombstone, I think, which will be interesting.
I was on mute because I was clicking around trying to get to the rundown. I didn't want the people getting upset at me.
No, you're fine. People, we want to hear from you. Hit us up in the chat. Say hey. We'll flash it up. Thank you to Lauren for tuning in. And now I think we, you know, we've been on for about 10 minutes. I think we've given people time to find us.
Yep.
Let's talk about the breaking news. It's fun to wake up and find things in the world, Twitter, group chats, Facebook, Instagram. I can't recall a morning recently where my phone was buzzing quite like it was today as Patty Gasso was announced as the new head coach for Team USA. This is a blockbuster move by USA Softball. And before I give my thoughts, Tara, you are in a very distinct position to talk about this because not only are you covering Patty Gasso and the sport of softball, you will also be on the other side as the head coach of Team Great Britain. And this could be a future opponent for you at some point down the road, cough, cough, 2028 Olympics. So, what is your immediate reaction to this?
You know, when I saw the news came out, I actually saw it via email first, and I was honestly truly excited. And I think when you look at the sport of softball, to have Patty Gasso, obviously a four-peat back-to-back national championship caliber coach, and for me, someone asked me, said, "Well, how do you feel about it?" I said, "It's great." I said, "Why wouldn't you want the best of the best in our sport, the pinnacle of our sport, for Patty Gasso to be leading Team USA? It's a win for Team USA, and it's a win for softball. And if you're going to compete, why wouldn't you want to compete against one of the greatest to ever do it?" And never shied away from tough competition to playing the best, because I think that's when you learn the most, not only about your team, but about each individual, and as an individual, as a player, as a coach, how you can get better. And that's where that learning comes from. So to be able to have her leading a group of women, Team USA, I couldn't think of a better person to take over at the helm to be hosting in LA in 2028. And it would be an honor to be across the field from Coach Gasso. I have nothing but respect for Patty Gasso and what she's done, not only for Oklahoma softball, but for women, for female head coaches, and now, and she's been a part of the international game in and out of it. So for me, I think it's a huge win across the board. And I know there are a lot of excited players, excited coaches, and fans for the sport. And you couldn't have written it any better. It's going to be in Oklahoma City.
Tara,
I mean, is it not poetic, Gray?
well, I want to mention that because I think that now we've kind of gotten a little bit of a timeline on the career of Patty Gasso as well. First off, this is a statement by Team USA that they're taking this extremely seriously. It's not, elevate an assistant. Not that the assistants wouldn't have been great hires as well, but Team USA said, no, we need to make a statement because the last couple of years, Japan's kind of been kicking America's butt in these international matchups. And a big reason why is the Team USA offense has not been scoring runs in these big games. And so I think by hiring Patty Gasso, you're saying we are here. We are not continuing to do what we've been doing. We're making an adjustment. And that's what we want, right? When we see teams play softball, I hear it all the time in the stands, make the adjustment. Well, Team USA is doing that. I also think that the poetic nature of this kind of shows us what the last couple years of the career of Patty Gasso as a head coach could look like. Because there have been rumors, and a lot of people asked me to ask her on softball media days on Out of the Box, and I didn't because I had just met the lady, and she's very nice and wonderful, but I wasn't going to ask this question. Everyone wants to know when she's going to retire, right? I mean, OU fans, people who have to play OU, that is the ultimate question when Patty Gasso is brought up and you talk about the end of her career. I think we might now kind of have an answer, because if I'm Patty Gasso, what better way to cap things off than to go with OU right up until that 2028 Olympics and then win a gold medal. I mean, that would be, that you could potentially win another national championship or two in that stretch up until 2028. You could win a gold medal, and then you could ride off into the sunset after doing that in Oklahoma City, where you've had so much success with a lot of the players probably who helped you do that. It would be the perfect storybook way to cap off a career if that's what she chooses. And I kind of think that the timing of it all makes me lean towards that being the result. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I think it would be to cap off a career with a gold medal. I think that's something that would be attractive to any coach that's pretty much done it all. And been able to win at the highest level, and achieving a gold medal is that next step. And I agree with you, Gray. This is a huge statement by USA Softball. Listen, I'm going to be honest with people. When Great Britain, when that job became available, Patty Gasso is the first person I send that job packet to. So I said, Patty, you're the best in the world. Why would you want to come and coach Great Britain? So for me, this is a step in the right direction for Team USA, who we know has had some political issues in the past. I mean, every organization, every university has their issues, but I think for USA Softball, it is a step in from seeing former players, their reaction to the news, and current players. It is huge. And I think you're right, Gray. Finding an answer to Yukiko Ueno and Goto for Japan is going to be on the biggest challenge for USA Softball, and how they reinvent or figure out a way to get that offense moving against Japan, who has a very, very different playing and training style than the rest of the world. So hats off to USA Softball. People had asked me, and that would have been my choice. So hats off to USA Softball for making the right choice, and be exciting to see how it shapes Team USA the next couple years here.
Last question before we move on. How does the assistant situation look like in your eyes? Because I will say one of the things I really liked about Team USA the last few years was I felt like they had a really good pool of assistants that they utilized with our buddy Tim Walton and Tony Baldwin and Cindy Ball Malone and a lot of these people who've been around in the game of softball. How does Coach Gasso utilize this? Does she kind of go the same route where maybe even keep some of those people or go other sitting head coaches? Or does she try and build a true staff and maybe get a specific pitching coach and a hitting coach and defense and something like that? How do you think she might operate in that lane?
I feel like she's going to probably go with what she knows, but she's got a couple of years to kind of figure that out. The one thing with international softball is sometimes the dates can be different. There'll be key dates during recruiting times, recruiting periods. They'll be during PGF or Alliance or on September 1st. So in terms of navigating those assistant coaching roles, that's a huge part of it. But I don't know why she wouldn't stick to what she knows, and maybe she brings back, Melissa Lombardi. I don't know how she doesn't take Jen Rocha, but I think she's going to stay pretty true to it in what she knows. But I haven't spoken to her. I don't know. That would just be my gut reaction to stick with a system and a staff that they are all proven winners. So that's how I would do it, Gray. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but that's what I see going forward.
Well, we could ask her now, Patty Gasso. No, I'm kidding. She's not here. That would be great. I don't know. And I think part of the answer, honestly, goes back to what I said. Like, where is Patty Gasso in the OU of it all? Is this kind of the last hurrah for her? Does she collaborate with some of the dream team of her staff members and stuff like that? Or is there more at OU, and this is kind of the first of a bunch of years of international head coaching? I don't know the answer to that. I think the answer to that could kind of skew how that assistant coach conversation goes. But again, like you said, I think the main point here is we got a lot of time until then. It is February 3rd, 2025. We're talking about the 2028 Summer Olympics. So
that's a lot of time, but it's going to be here before you know it. You have to also remember Patty Gasso's coaching tree. Obviously, was at the NFCA Hall of Fame induction where Tim Walton was speaking about his early days, and he's a part of the Patty Gasso when he worked at OU along with Kenny Gajewski. Like there is a large Patty Gasso coaching tree, so I'm sure she's going to pull from that. And again, bravo to USA Softball. I honestly I was surprised, Gray, to be honest with you, but I think it's a move and a step in the right direction.
It's a pleasant surprise, 100%. I see some of the questions. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Meg, for tapping in. We will answer those in a bit because we will be doing a conference by conference preview. If anybody else wants to pop in and say hello, tell us where you're watching, tell us where you're listening, we would love that as well. We're ready to dive into the 2025 season. It all starts in a few days. And Tara, this is a new look landscape of softball. Conference realignment has struck. You've got OU in Texas in the SEC. ACC has Cal and Stanford. The Big Ten has UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. And I guess one of my biggest questions is, how does conference realignment change the league races? Because when I chart a lot of how this goes, a lot of new people are front runners or top 3 or 4 in their new leagues.
Gray, we've spoken a lot about this, and I think in terms of conference realignment, what is going to help and hurt various programs is their schedule. And we've spoken about this time and time again. Who are they going to play in their conference slate, in their conference schedule in the regular season? Because they're not going to be able to play every single team. And we've spoken about this in terms of the SEC at length every year, because when you look at that conference, it's just going to be it's a clash of titans in the SEC. It really is. And I think now the Big Ten, you've got 17 squads, and adding UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, perennial powers in softball. It's going to be a fun season. I don't know what to expect, and I think that's probably why I'm so excited to get going on Thursday, because it is going to be different. And then you got a Stanford and a Cal flying across the country that are joining the Atlantic Coast Conference, which is obviously on the other side of other coast. Pacific Coast is now playing on the Atlantic Coast. So a lot of travel, UCLA traveling across the country. I think understanding how that travel is put together, how programs are budgeting for it, and understanding how to do it during spring break so the athletes are having the most time to do their schoolwork, because remember, they are student athletes. There is a student in front of the athlete part, and obviously play softball. But again, I really don't know what's going to happen with our Power Four conferences now, and I think that's what's so exciting heading into 2025.
I love that answer, because you get to the heart of the matter in the UCLA conversation, the Stanford conversation, the Cal conversation, the Washington, the Oregon. There are intangibles that we're not able to measure when we put together our predictions for these conferences. I don't know how UCLA is going to handle the travel emotionally, mentally. They might handle it well. They might not. It depends on the person. It depends on the kid. How do they deal with being on a plane a lot? How do they deal with long flights and the exhaustion of that? I drove 2 hours yesterday from a farm, and my right side is sore as heck. Like, I don't know how it's going to go in some of these cases. I know UCLA is going to be talented. I don't know how they're going to adjust to this new lifestyle. And that's the kind of thing that can't be quantified without evidence. So we have no idea what that evidence is going to look like until games are played. And that excites me the most. I do think you're going to see a lot of these newcomers make statements in the conference race. And one of those newcomers might just, I don't know, win a 5th national championship. Billy Shields asked the question that's a bullet point on the rundown. Billy says, Boomer Sooner, can Sooners win 5 in a row? I think they can. Love the Sooners. I mean, 5? What are we? What? I think they can. I think a lot of teams can win a national championship. But this is the first time in a while that they haven't been the favorite.
I think anybody can win on any given day. That's why we played the game, right? Like, full stop. And when you have a formula and a blueprint and a coaching staff and a squad that knows how to win, I think we spoke about this. If anybody watched the Sue Inquist podcast with Tim Moulton, once you know how to win and once you get there, it's a lot easier to win again when you have that blueprint, other than being the first, right? So is it possible? Yes. I will say this now. I don't think it's highly unlikely in my opinion, but you never know. When you've got a mix of youth and some transfers, you're just going to see who steps up. And I think after the first couple of weeks of season, that'll shake out. But if it was like anything like last year, we thought one thing was going to happen in the first couple of weeks of the season, and by the end, it could completely flipped on itself in a team like UCLA. So I wouldn't put too much stock on the first couple of weeks. We'll have an idea, but is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I'm going to say no.
I would agree with that. I think the thing that a lot of people are missing about this discussion was just how truly special that senior class was. And what they did is uncommon. And if winning a national championship becomes such a common thing, then I wonder how we view all these classes of people and these players. Like, one of the things that I always say to Sam Fisher when we're talking about broadcasting and stuff is, if everything is special, then nothing is special.
Mhm.
So if we're talking about a special senior class, but then all of a sudden the next class wins 4 national championships, well, maybe just winning a national championship isn't that hard at Oklahoma. And I think winning a national championship is difficult, and that's what made that senior class so brilliant and so special and so fantastic.
I'll just tie a bow on this so we can get going a little bit further. But Tiare Jennings, Alyssa Brito, Jada Coleman, Riley Boone, Elena Torres, Kinsey Hansen, Riley Ludlam, Kelly Maxwell, Nicole May, and Carly Keeney.
I'm sorry, were you reading the AUSL draft results, or what was that?
Those are their impact losses. So that's our full stop there. That's why, and not only as players but as leaders, right? So I think, but it's really exciting because you're going to see who emerges as the new leader. Is it Ella Parker? Is it McEnroe, Marinas, Pickering? I think there's so much excitement around it, and that's what's great about this season. Like I said at the beginning of the show.
All right, one more big bullet point before we get into our conference previews. The story of the offseason, the team of the offseason has been Texas Tech. Jerry Glasgow leaves Louisiana to go to Lubbock, and then they start bringing in people, and then they bring in the big fish. The rod and reel are going crazy because Nyjah Kennedy takes the deal and comes to Texas Tech. Huge moment in NIL history and softball history, and now the Red Raiders are trying to do something that frankly is not done in this sport, and that is get to a national championship, get to the World Series without really any history whatsoever. They've been to the NCAA tournament 8 times, never been to a super, and now they're trying to stand on the mountaintop this year, Tara.
You know, Greg, we're seeing also a repeat of the season before when Jordy Ball left Oklahoma to go to Nebraska, and how that injected so much enthusiasm into Nebraska softball. We're seeing the same thing with Texas Tech here, going out and getting Nyjah Kennedy for reportedly $1.2 million NIL deal. But the impact of Nyjah Kennedy going to Texas Tech, Jerry Glasgow, obviously, as well, leaving Louisiana, just a stalwart in the Sun Belt Conference, year in and year out, producing so much out of Louisiana. We'll see what he does now at Texas Tech and Lubbock, and a team to keep an eye on. And will she have enough offensive support? And knowing Jerry Glasgow, I think she's going to, Gray. So that is a team that could potentially make a run to the Women's College World Series. And Glasgow's been there before, and Nyjah's been there before as well. So it's not something out of the ordinary. And another huge news item in the offseason, and will really shake up the Big 12.
And I want to hammer home this point. Like, this would be a historic moment for Texas Tech, because the last time a team made their first World Series without making a super beforehand was Hawaii, or the year before was Hawaii in 2010, and they went to a super in 2007. Like, what Texas Tech is trying to do does not happen in this sport. They're trying to fast track the process that a lot of programs have gone through. A program like Duke, who went to a couple supers and then made it to Oklahoma City. And I think if there was ever an opportunity to upend the apple cart, this is probably it, because Texas Tech has crafted a roster around Nyjah with a lot of people from a lot of different places that can make a statement. Now we just have to see if they do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, I probably will say this 3 more times. I am so excited for softball season, and this is one of the reasons. And I think we have so many different storylines. We're going to see maybe some new heroes emerge out of these storylines, and we've got a few that we know probably are going to make some big impacts. Obviously, Kennedy is one of them, but again, another reason, and we'll get into the schedule for week 1, because Texas Tech is going to be down there in Florida. I think that's going to be a fun little tournament. But again, so many different storylines. And if you all in the chat have any thoughts on what players to watch heading into season, please go ahead and drop them into the chat. But again, obviously Nyjah Kennedy is electric in the circle, and somebody that can win you, gives you a chance to win every single ball game.
All right, it's time for my favorite segment. I'm going to flash Jordan's question. Hey, Tara. Hey, Gray. What matchups are you excited for on Thursday? I'm going to ask the question, Where in the world is Tara Henry? What you doing opening weekend, partner?
Well, believe it or not, I am actually going out to Puerto Vallarta for the first time ever. I will be at the PV Challenge in Puerto Vallarta with I believe it's going to be the first game of 2025 with Oklahoma State and Florida State kicking us off. So I'll be down there in PV. If anybody's down there, let me know. I'll be hanging out in Puerto Vallarta for the first weekend and the first time I've ever been to the PV challenge, collegiate challenge. So excited to head down there, and then we'll get to where I am next week, but excited for that.
Ooh, I'm going to answer this question real quick. Keith asks, Gray, are they testing out the Trash Pandas field at the Rocket City Showcase for a possible SEC Central location? I assume he means SEC softball tournament. I'll be there in Bama Plays Jack State. Roll Tide. The answer is yes. Yes, that will be happening in a few weeks. Thank you, Keith, for tuning in. Jeremy tunes in as well. Roll Tide in a basketball state. That's true. Alabama and Auburn, 1-3 nationally in basketball. That's also good in softball. Thank you, Jeremy, for tuning in. Meg, I see your question. We're going to get to that when we talk about the Big 12 in just a moment. And I think a little extra comment on our OU conversation from Blind Date Outdoors Sportsman, parentheses, hunt, fish, trap, close parentheses. Sounds like a good day. Thanks to the transfer portal, OU has the advantage over most all others. The portal is ruining softball and fan base, and also added, anytime you're allowed to bring in top transfers and still be able to draw on the top freshman recruits coming out of high school, you have a legitimate shot at the ring. I don't know about ruining softball. I think there are a lot of other things that complicate college sports, and this is not the time for that discussion. But I think the last comment is a true one. When you have a great recruiting class and you have the opportunity to hit the portal and fill some holes, that is an easy way to make sure that there isn't a true canyon drop off year to year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is something we could have another entire podcast about, but the transfer portal is here, people. It's here to stay, and you either get out in front of it or you don't. And I think we're seeing the impacts of NIL, and I'm hearing whispers that we're going to have maybe some salary caps. We'll see. But until then, yes, it is the wild, wild west. I don't know how many cliches I can say at once, but the transfer portal is the transfer portal, and it goes both ways. I think you make a good point about some of the players that have left. When you look at a Jocelyn Erickson and how she's thrived in Florida, I think it can go both ways. So I don't know this is all about OU. I think it's just how college softball is shaping up and the rest of college sports. And with the NCAA passing various legislation regarding how it's changing the landscape of sports and softball, I think you just got to do with it what you may. But I will say this, getting a team to play together and having a healthy culture is one of the hardest things to do. It doesn't matter how much talent you had. And I think that's one area that OU really, really thrives in, and a reason why they can do it. I think Oklahoma State does a great job as well, because just think about it, Gray. A couple years ago, everyone was on Kenny Gajewski for bringing in. Remember when Sam Shaw came in and was throwing the bat? People were had a huge uproar about it. So I think we go in cycles, and I believe that at the end of the day, my favorite thing is just great softball. And so, yes, we could talk at length about this, but the transfer portal, it is what it is.
Maybe one day, once we have the House case and all the official revenue sharing details, we'll have that conversation. I know I read a report this morning from Ross Dellinger that they're starting to discuss university monies being utilized in the athletic department, which in the Power Four really isn't a thing. I know a lot of schools are preparing for this revenue sharing, and that's causing a lot of budgets to shrink and a lot of adjustments being made in those athletic departments. I don't want to get too specific, but that's something that we'll cover at a later time. Callan, 100%. Sam Shaw bat flips feel like 20 years ago. OMG.
Yeah, I know, Callan, right? Like it was just like a couple years ago, but I feel you. Oh man, so good.
Shall we preview some conferences?
Yes, let's get to it.
All right, ACC, we start with you. The preseason poll, number 1, Duke with 11 first place votes, Florida State 2. The rest of the top 5 looks like this. Virginia Tech 3, Stanford 4, Virginia 5. Tara, it's been a hot second since I've looked at an ACC preseason poll and not seen Florida State up there at the very top.
Yeah. Well, I think you've got to give credit to Marissa Young and what she's been able to do at Duke in just a short amount of time. Again, she's got Cassidy Curd in the circle. I think there's a little bit of a question mark on how the Blue Devils are going to handle the pitching circle. But yes, I don't know. Florida State last year went through some bumps and bruises, but I know your theory, Gray. I love your theory. It's the every other year theory. And I know now you're going to talk Florida State up because it's the year for them to go back to the Women's College World Series. But I do think the Noles will be back in contention there. And you can't really ever count them out of winning an ACC title. They're just so talented. And Lonnie Alameda does such a great job with that staff and that squad. So, and they've got Jasoni Beecham. I mean, when you got Jasoni Beecham, you got Makeda Edenfield, and a whole arsenal of arms in the circle for Florida State. But I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. And then I think the disruptor there is going to be Cal.
I love that. Go on.
The disruptor there is going to be Cal. And those ACC teams probably haven't played a Cal squad before, a fiery Chelsea Spencer Cal squad. And they're going to be gritty. And gosh, incredible middles with Butler and Anders up the middle are returning. So just a whole lot of talent for that Cal squad. And I think in the ACC, for me, I know that was your one question, who's going to disrupt it? I think it's going to be Cal.
I love that answer. Yeah, so my pick is Florida State to win the conference. I know. So last year, it was so funny. I brought up the other year theory again. And Florida State fans were like, what are you talking about, you idiot? I mean, why would you say the math? That doesn't make sense. Well, who was right? So now this year, I'm telling you, the math says Florida State is going to the World Series. And I think they're going to go to the World Series after winning the ACC. I think they're going to get back where they belong. I have some concerns about Duke and some of the lineup departures. Cassidy Curd's going to be great, but one of the things that made Cassidy Curd so great as well that we didn't mention was her pairing with Jayla Wright and Lily Walker.
Yes.
Both of them are gone. So how does that pitching staff kind of move on with Cassidy Curd, presumably taking an even bigger load at that I'm curious. And while Florida State doesn't have a true ace, at least in my eyes right now, they have a ton of options. So I think the Seminoles are in a little bit better of a spot than Duke. I like Virginia as kind of the disruptor, the dark horse.
Yeah, okay.
What I love about the Hoos is they've got a big pitching staff and they will throw them all in a game. They are not afraid to do it. That's something that we've talked about on our coach calls with Virginia. And Eden Bigham is a very impressive talent. They've got a lot of brilliant youngsters on this roster. Jade Hilton continues to get better and better. I think Virginia can make some noise. And maybe the team I'm most interested in checking out is Clemson. How do they respond to the end of the Valerie Cagle era, to the end of that senior class that frankly went poorly at the very, very end? I mean, they didn't even get to the Tuscaloosa regional final like a lot of people thought they would. So how does Clemson respond to a disappointing ending last year with a roster that is going to have to find some new stars? I think that's the question with them.
Yeah, I have a big question mark next to Clemson in my notes. And I think you and I are on the same page. And obviously Bingaman at Virginia. And then a freshman out of Stanford, Zoe Pistacchio. I hope that's how you say her name. I'll get it for you. And I think she's a one to keep an eye on in terms of new rookies coming into the conference. It's so weird to say Stanford and Cal in the ACC. I'll get used to it. But I think when you look at the ACC, I agree with you, Gray. I think it's going to be Florida State. It's going to be a tough go with that top five that we talked about. You never know about Virginia Tech as well. I think you always got to be mindful of the Hokies. So I am excited to see how the ACC turns out this year.
One last nugget, NC State at 13 in this preseason poll. That is too low, coaches. Coach Leftwich has done a great job. I love the staff. I know a lot of them, and I've heard great things when talking to them about this team. And last year, they showed some real flashes. If I had to make a bold, like rock solid prediction about the ACC, it's that NC State will finish higher than 13th in the conference this season, and I feel pretty darn confident about that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Great. I had that in my notes as well. Like, why is NC State towards the bottom there? I think Lindsay Leftwich has done a nice job just in a season there and knows how to win, obviously, coming from LSU. I think that's a big part of it. So, again, the ACC up for grabs, but my pick is the same as your pick, Florida State.
Yeah. The Big 12. Here's the top 5. Oklahoma State, your preseason pick to win. Again, this is from the coaches. 9 of the 11 first place votes. Texas Tech, number 2. Arizona, more on them later. I'll see them this weekend at number 3. Baylor at 4. BYU at 5. Tara, this is a new Big 12. OU, Texas. See ya. We add in Utah. We add in Arizona State. We add in Arizona. How does this shake out?
Obviously losing Texas and Oklahoma, you think, Oklahoma State is a clear front runner here. Just with the history, multiple trips to the Women's College World Series and what they've been able to do there at Oklahoma State. And then here comes Jerry Glasgow and Nigel Kennedy.
Who?
to Lubbock. So another top 4, top 5 that I think is pretty tight. Even in Arizona, Arizona went through so many pitching woes before the start of the season last year, and now they're healthy and have got so many arms available, including Devin Netz, who's back from injury. And I like Arizona. Caitlin Lowe led the Wildcats to the Women's College World Series in her first season as head coach. That's unheard of. So I think you've got some great coaching there happening in Phoenix, but again, it's going to be between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. And I don't think people are talking enough about Oklahoma State's pitching staff. I really don't. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. But Ruby Malin and Riley Crandall and Kyra Aycock, I think Carrie Eberly is going to be really good for that pitching staff and really get them. Obviously, losing Lexi Kilfoyle, who just went number 1 in the AUSL, is a huge blow to Oklahoma State, but I think they're going to be in contention again and really, really going to be tough to beat in a 3-game series. I think the question mark is Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. You've got Nigel Kennedy having to go 3 days in a row, potentially, or 2 days in a row when you've got a diverse pitching staff in Stillwater. I think that gives them the edge. I don't know. What do you feel, Gray?
I think Oklahoma State wins this league. I want to see what Carrie Eberly can do with Ruby Malin and her speed mix. I think while Ruby Malin is obviously very talented, not a lot of people talk about how, to be honest, how kind of average she was last year. She was okay. She was okay. And she's too talented to just be okay, to just have an okay season. And so, see, Callan, here we go. Manifesting a change up for Malin. I mean, I think that if Carrie Eberly can help her develop more weapons, more variety, more of a mix, then we truly talk about her being dangerous. Because right now, based on the film that I've watched and the numbers that I've gathered, I would have Crandall as the 1 and Malin as the 2. And I still think that's a pretty, imposing 1-2 punch. But if you can make Malin tap into her skills even more, then Oklahoma State becomes a possible juggernaut, because there are a lot of impressive bats in this lineup. There are a lot of people who can make an impact just beyond those pitchers. Kyra Aycock, to your point, also, what a reliable, probable number 3 that is in that staff. I mean, it's just, there's so much depth. And with Texas Tech, I do have a couple concerns that I don't have an answer to until games are played, if that makes sense. The disruptor here is 100% Arizona. As someone who has been preparing for them all week and just made a board, my gosh, how do you prepare for these people? Because there are 8 pitchers on staff, and 7 of them made the board because they all legitimately could throw on Saturday night when Alabama plays in Hillenbrand. So I had to be ready for all of them. If you're a coach, how do you get your players ready for 7 arms?
It's not fun. It
That-
really isn't fun. It's actually not fun at all.
And with an outfield that, promo for Out of the Box, we have Kinsey Fowler on this week. She called this one of the best outfields in America, if not Arizona history. Reagan Shockey, Dakota Kennedy, Kyle Altmaier, very versatile. But Shockey and Kennedy is like, those are 2 potential All-Americans in the outfield this year. So Arizona is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year, and just an annoyance, I think, for head coaches to get ready for because of the amount of arms that they've got.
Absolutely. And if Kinsey Fowler is saying this is the best outfield that she's seen in potentially the history of Arizona.
I mean, she said it's like having Caleb Rowe and Haley McClenny in the outfield.
Well, I'm just saying,
oh,
even their head coach back in the day, obviously Caitlin Lowe is probably one of the best outfielders in the country. So if she's saying that, that's some pretty high praise. And I agree with you. I think Arizona is a disruptor there. And, we saw UCF had some struggles entering the Big 12, obviously making that big jump last year. And we'll see how Cindy Ball Malone really gets those Knights going. And I think they're going to have a little bit, not easier time, but I think that adjustment won't be as big, making that big jump to a Power 4 conference. So again, keep an eye on the Knights, because they're always a team that's gritty and makes problems and produces some upsets throughout the season. So another team to keep an eye on.
I'll also throw in Utah. It feels weird to just gloss over Utah here, considering how good they've been the last few years.
I agree with you, Gray. Obviously the big news was losing Oklahoma and Texas. And then now looking at the addition of Arizona State and Utah, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for all those adjustments, because you're just not playing the same teams like you're used to playing, right? You don't really know your conference yet. So I think we're going to see a lot of ups and downs, not only in the Big 12, but across all the conferences with all this conference realignments.
We got 2 more leagues to go.
Yep.
Let's hit up the Big 10. They don't put out a preseason coaches poll, so we're going to go off Brady's.
Yeah, they don't. I think it's every year, right?
It's I don't get it. What are we doing? It's one email. You can send it in January 1st. You can have a month. Whatever. Anyway,
I know there's 17 of them, right? So maybe it's just hard getting everybody together.
Well,
you get upset every year about this. You get upset every year about this.
Well, Alabama plays a lot of Big Ten teams, and I have a square specifically for where you are in your preseason poll, and I hate that I have to leave it blank.
Well,
so
Brady did the work for you. Here we go.
That's right. I'm using Brady's. Here is Brady's Big Ten top 5. Number 1, UCLA. 2, Indiana. Brady loves them Hoosiers. 3, Northwestern. 4, Michigan. 5, Penn State. Before we get into who we think is going to win, maybe this is the answer to disruptor, it feels notable that I did not say Nebraska. And I know Brady has a lot of concerns about the Huskers. I have concerns. I have concerns about most teams in America. That's kind of the fun part of the preseason. We're basing off of the facts that we have without actual game evidence for 2025. But Brady has voiced his thoughts on Nebraska not really having anyone behind Jordy in a lot of capacities. I think, I don't want to directly quote him and misquote him, but I think he said something to the effect of, I'm not sure who the second best player on Nebraska is. And if they don't have an answer to that, then maybe this is the spot for Nebraska. If they find an answer, we're talking about a team that can win the league.
Yeah, Brady and I actually disagree on this. I think he's really, really low on Nebraska. And I don't think you can even fathom the impact of a player like Jordy Ball. And with Jordy Ball in the circle, she's going to hit as well. I just think that squad, and I watched their interview again. Sydney Supley did an incredible interviews with the Big 10 media days. There's something about a team that plays together and they play for one another. And we're going to learn a lot about the Huskers in this first weekend. But I'm a little bit higher on Nebraska. I think they can be disruptors in the Big Ten. So I know that they're not there, but me personally, I think Nebraska is going to shock some people, because when you've got a leader like Jordy Ball, somebody that is a generational talent, She is. I think we just forgot about her. I don't know how, because she obviously missed a year. But I think for me, I'm a lot higher on Nebraska and the Huskers and Rhonda Revelle and what she's been able to do with that culture there at Nebraska. And for me, I have actually Nebraska circled here as a potential disruptor. And I'm not as high on Indiana as Brady is. So again, I think that's why we do this. I think it's great to have this conversation. And if you're in the chat, we can love to hear from you too, because again, this will all be solved between the white lines. So we can all talk about it and say what we think. But again, it'll all be solved in the white lines. Gray, what are your thoughts on the Big Ten?
I'm with you on Nebraska. I think the answer to this question is Olivia DiNardo.
Yes.
Like what? Why are we ignoring Olivia DiNardo? Love you, Brady, but I mean, it's not like she had a down year last year, which means she still hit like 14 home runs and I think she hit 290. I mean, yeah, that is down from what she did at her freshman year, but it's not like it was a bad season. Olivia DiNardo is an immediate impact player on this Nebraska team. I think the Kamenzens have the capability of being immediate impact players on this Nebraska team.
Yeah.
The question for me is actually Jordy. How comfortable is she? Yeah. Because one of the things that I noticed that first injury, and I think we talked about this last year, it looked so familiar to me because it was almost exactly what happened to Montana in terms of like the play, how it all went down. And it took Montana a while, even though she was pitching, to feel comfortable again. And I'm wondering how Jordy responds to all the rehab that she's done in the offseason and how much trust she has in that knee to start the year and as the season goes on. That's a question that only Jordy can answer. And if the answer is, yeah, I'm all in, yeah, I'm fine, no team, no fear, whatever, then this is a Nebraska team that will be top 3 in the Big Ten. Like, the floor is 3rd for me.
Yeah, and I think you can't ever count out Northwestern or Michigan too. I mean, it's just, again, always atop the Big Ten. So I think obviously programs that are going to give UCLA, who's in the top spot, a run for their money. When you look at the Bruins, the amount of arms in the circle, when you've got Taylor Tinsley, Caitlin Terry, and the addition of the number 1 recruit in Addison Fisher, again, bolstered by a Jordan Woolery, a Megan Grant, and some really talented freshmen. I think UCLA, Northwestern, Michigan, same names that we always see. But again, Nebraska is going to go the way that Jordy Ball goes. I agree with you, Gray.
I also, by the way, have UCLA winning the league. Welcome to the Big Ten. Go Bruins.
I think the Bruins are going to win the Big Ten. Yes, Michael, we agree with you. I think that's going to be, hey, we're going to win the Pac, and now we're going to go win the Big Ten.
Yeah, that pitching staff, so versatile.
Yeah, they're going to be tough. Bruins are going to be tough.
I wanted to show Callan's comments real quick as well, because I think it's another good point. Casey Hoffman, Arkansas transfer. She's pretty good in Fayetteville. And Callan says Casey's going to hit, 350 with 15 home runs because of weaker pitching in the Big Ten compared to the SEC. Same deal with the Kamenzens. I think that's a fair point. This is a Big Ten with 17 teams, and there are maybe 8 that I would feel good saying are going to make the NCAA tournament this year. So there are going to be opportunities for people to get comfortable in the Big Ten. Before we move on, I do want to mention Washington. They're picked 8th on Brady's list. This is the biggest unknown of any team I can remember because, again, putting together a board for them. What a nightmare for opening weekend, because I was looking at this roster, I was writing stuff down, I was like, where did everyone go? I mean, who are these people? And so this is a Washington team that's going to have to figure each other out in real time and do it with a suddenly much more available Heather Tarr, because now she's not having to worry about Team USA stuff anymore, and she can be 100% fully in. Not that she wasn't before, but now there's no alternative stuff clogging any possible focus. And Washington, for the first time in a very long time, feels like an actual legitimate question mark.
I agree with you, Gray. And when you take a look at having a Washington roster that was depleted, let's just be honest, at the end of this season, and we're going to see what The Huskies are.
I'm sorry. Brandon brought it back. No underbears this year. The Bruins are ready to pounce this year with loads of talent mixed with experience. That's a deep cut. Hello, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon. Oh my gosh. It is. It's so great to have you back. I almost forgot about the Underbears. Oh, that was classic. It was a classic one.
Sorry, keep going.
No, big question mark for me and Washington and how they manage that really small squad. But Jen Salling comes back to her alma mater. She's back at Washington after being at UCF. So some familiarity there with Victoria Hayward heading on over to Nevada, leaving the Huskies. So a little bit of a different look there, and obviously going to be a team to watch the first couple of weeks because we'll see what's been going on up there in Seattle.
One more comment from Brendan. Little love for Bridget Nemeth in Penn
Yes.
State. Bridget Nemeth going to be
Yes.
very, very good. I kind of think she already is,
She's very
but
good.
she can be great this year, and Penn State will be a team to watch. One more league, Tara. It's the Southeastern Conference. Have you heard of it?
Have it? It just means more?
It just means head tilt. More. Here's the top 5. Texas picked number 1 in the preseason poll with 7 first-place votes. Number 2 is Florida with 6 first-place votes. Number 3, Oklahoma with 2 first-place votes. 4, Tennessee, 5, Texas A&M. This very closely mirrors our preseason top 5 or preseason top 3 for sure. I was on the Texas Island. Our whole crew voted Florida number 1. I stand by my pick. I'm sure you do as well with Florida. But this is going to be the debate this year, I think, in a lot of ways. It feels like Florida and Texas are just a step above everybody else in the SEC this season based on what we know now.
Yeah, and like I said, it's going to be a clash of the Titans in the SEC. If it wasn't before, now even more with the addition of Texas and OU. But again, you've got Florida, in my opinion. Florida and Texas are 1A, 1B. I think Texas returning nearly its entire roster. Obviously, Vivi with the injury is going to hurt them a bit because they'll have to, really shuffle that infield around. But again, Texas, the amount of arms they have and the amount of pitchers with the Longhorns is really going to help them out. But Florida, the addition of Caitlin Oxley in the circle, the freshman, she'll help bolster Rothrock, who did it on her own, really, a season ago in the circle. So, and Corby Otis, gosh, so explosive. Kendra Falby, Jocelyn Erickson. I think between both OU and Texas coming in, they're going to give everybody a run for their money with Florida as well at the top there. So again, it's about scheduling, and we've talked about this, Gray. It's always about scheduling for the SEC regular season title.
Schedule luck is a thing. That's why this is the only league where when I do my preseason poll, I truly look at the schedule, the metrics of in-conference strength of schedule, and I try and figure out, okay, who's got the advantage. Like there's a team this year in Georgia, for example, that I'm not super high on, but they avoid Florida, Texas, and Oklahoma. So the schedule kind of suggests that they're going to at least not be last in the conference because they've got an opportunity to face everybody outside of my top 3. I think the Texas-Florida point is so interesting because, Caitlin Oxley, it sounds like she's going to miss a little bit of time in February, maybe a couple weeks, which will be something to monitor because how does Ava Brown pick up that slack as the presumptive number 2 to start the season? Remember, probably the worst Florida looked all year last year was opening weekend. They couldn't score. They lost to Michigan. They struggled. So we'll
I was
see.
at that game. I was there.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a different look this season. Maybe. I don't know. But
that's when I said to Tim, I was like, oh my gosh, Jocelyn Erickson is one of the most elite, incredible receivers in the country. Like she is the best. Like I literally was behind the plate. He's like, yeah. Tell her she's the number 2 catcher in the country. So she's always, wanting to be the number 1. No, I thought she was the best. I still she's an incredible receiver, especially a left-hander. But I was at that game and it was horrible. Yes, Florida looked terrible against that loss to Michigan. Much different team at the end of the season.
Yeah. So without Oxley, how does that pitching staff work? I trust Steph with a lot of things, my life as a pitching coach. So I'm sure she'll be fine, but we're not going to see full strength Florida at the start of the year, again, based on a couple reports coming out of Gainesville. The Texas of it all, I think this point is a great one from Brendan. We're talking a lot about Vivi Martinez. Like Leanne Good is right there. Yeah. And, 2024 Leanne Good went through a lot. But if she can do what she was doing in 2023, then Texas doesn't lose a step.
And Reese Atwood. Great. We think Reese is going to have another blockbuster season. She's so great. she's another, in terms of receivers and offensive threats between those two, Erickson and Atwood. The Texas fans know I love Reese Atwood. So I think when you've got a squad that basically mostly returns, they've only lost, 3 players, the Longhorns.
Let me pull up my roster packet here.
Delcheck.
Excuse me. I know they added 3, which in 2025 feels impossible. Yeah, they had 5 people leave.
Okay. Yeah.
5.
So pretty much, Bella Dayton, who, let me tell you, just was a terror on Team Italy this past summer. Obviously, they lose at Bella Dayton. She was impossible to get out. So that's another player that the Longhorns lost. But in general, pretty similar squad. Again, who's been to the Women's College World Series multiple times and nearly there. So I think another team that has got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, but even though ranked number 1 in the country.
I'm picking Texas to win the SEC. Spoiler alert for Out of the Box coming out this week. Who's your disruptor, Tara?
Disruptor in the SEC. That's
all of them.
I was gonna say every single team, but I'm with you, Gray, on Georgia, and I think a lot of that has to do with their scheduling as well. I think Georgia has a really interesting combination of some veterans and really youthful, versatile, athletic freshman rookies that have come in and will make a huge impact, including Mua Williams. I was able to watch them in the fall at the Jack this past fall and really, really impressed with how athletic they are. They are young, but they are strong, they are athletic, and again, I think they could be a huge disruptor in the SEC this year.
All right, I'm going to go disruptor-wise. I think everyone can be. I think that's what makes this league fun. Welcome, Texas and OU. You about to learn. I think Arkansas is the team that I would list here because I want to, say this.
Yeah.
They return their ace and Robin Herron and their top 3 bats. Like, in terms of a foundation for a year, that's a lot better than multiple teams around them in this preseason poll. Look, Brendan, I see you. LSU is going to have a better year than expected. Tatum Clopton's been throwing really well and is most likely going to be the number 2. Understood. That senior class that just graduated full of excellent players like Taylor Pleasance and Sierra Briggs never made the World Series and went to Supers twice. And a lot of the issues that LSU has been underperforming at the tail end of conference play, going through a little bit of a swoon and kind of dropping down in the standings lower than their talent level should be. So it's hard for me to buy a team that just lost a lot of that talent to graduation. I think next year LSU is going to be a monster. I'm not sure this year LSU is going to be a top 4 team in this conference. I think Arkansas has the capability to do that if some of the arms around Robin Herron develop and coalesce, and some of these freshmen that we're expecting to see this year really make an immediate impact.
I'm with you, Brendan. I think LSU is a team that's going to be really, really interesting. And Gray, I see your point regarding next year, but they could surprise some people. And I know I spoke to Beth Serena and she said, listen, Tara, I don't know what to expect either. I think we've got a whole new look here for the Tigers, but seems like they're excited over there in Baton Rouge. And again, I like that call. Could be a disruptor with a very different look for the Tigers and Beth Serena. Again, Bryce Neal taking over the offense there. And he himself said, we're going to look different. You're going to see a different Tigers offense. So I was able to interview Beth Serena. Again, you can check it out on the YouTube page on Softball America. And I think another team to keep an eye on, and I agree with you, Gray, obviously postseason has been difficult for the Tigers to get back to the Women's College World Series, but could have a little less pressure without those seniors or those super seniors that they had a season ago.
Maybe that is entirely possible, and that was something that Tom brought up when we talked to a lot of coaches during media days. Sometimes when a big senior class leaves, it allows other people to find their voice, and that is certainly entirely possible at LSU. Let's see a couple more comment. Brandon, excuse me, not Brendan. We've had a Brendan and a Brandon. Texas and Florida return a scary amount of players, and adding players, that series is going to be nuts. I'm also curious to see how Bama looks this season with their momentum and new faces. OU pitching, question mark. That is my question mark with OU. Tune into the Out of the Box podcast for a very deep Alabama discussion this week. That's what I'll say.
They love it.
And let's see. Here we go. What last question about the SEC? Brendan, my one question about Arkansas is the fielding. Does Wyckoff play an outfielder? Is Ellis with Day being the DP? Yeah, I also didn't mention, and we didn't mention Courtney Day, which again, we love when things happen like abruptly in the middle of nowhere. And that was kind of a late ad for Courtney Deifold that adds a power bat. And according to Callan, another pitcher with experience, which is important. So again, a lot to like about Arkansas this year.
Yeah, and again, those who say when you ask about the SEC and disruptors, I think it's every week, and it could be any team. I just think that's what makes the SEC so difficult and exhausting for every team, because you mentally have to be on every single weekend. I'm not saying that other conferences aren't that, but in the SEC, every single weekend you have to be on, and there is no break. And that is what makes it so difficult. It's who's going to survive the SEC, who's going to do well enough to get a seed that is advantageous, and hopefully get that squad to the Women's College World Series. But again, it is a gauntlet and something that Texas and OU are now going to experience.
Welcome, guys. Excited to have you. Let's close the show here on Good Morning Softball America with three big things. The three biggest events this weekend. We start, Tara.
I thought you were going to do music.
No, I mean, I can. You want me to crank? Let's see. Hold on. Let's see what we got.
I was not ready to dance.
This is hip hop.
Oh.
Three big things.
We need a proper three big things.
We're gonna work on that. All right, the NFCA Leadoff Classic starts on Thursday. Again, I've used this phrase way too many times on this show. A blockbuster matchup with Nebraska and Tennessee on Thursday night. Presumably Jordy Ball against Carlin Pickens, which, like, let's go in. And then a lot to get excited about in Clearwater, including multiple games on the MLB Network, which is going to be fun. And maybe the biggest game of the entire weekend, the game that it's right smack dab in the middle of my Saturday, and I'm not going to be on the air, and I cannot wait to watch Nebraska, Texas Tech. Like, yes.
I mean, what a first weekend for us to get. Normally, we don't get to see huge matchups in week one. We've seen a little bit of it, but like you said, Gray, I think there's some top 25 Women's College World Series potential matchups as well in week one. And again, down in Clearwater, our own Sydney Supley will be down there in Florida at Clearwater. Gray, you're going to be in Arizona, correct?
Correct. More on that in a second, but yes, okay. And I will not be alone.
We're not there yet. Sorry, I'm going too fast. I was on the rundown.
Callan just dropping. He says Marshall beats Texas Tech Thursday.
Okay, Callan, let's screenshot this.
Yeah, you got that. I need to check and see what time that game is. Because now I'm interested. That was not something I was planning on tracking, honestly. I mean, there are a lot of people that I know on this Marshall roster because of Summer League softball, and I know their talent, like a Bella Gerlach, Abby Darnley, and there are also some people who just departed from this team, and Marshall didn't have a great season last year, so I would love to see Coach Zerk and Ali Harrell and that staff find success.
Did McKinney?
Yeah,
2 professional players just drafted by the AUSL.
I mean, that would be fascinating. I mean, that would be on par in terms of start to a season upsets with App State over Michigan in football in 2005.
Wow, yeah, that'd be big. Well, we'll make sure we got our upset alert on ready to go in case it does happen, Kellen. But no, a huge Nebraska Texas Tech. What a story that is again for Jordy Ball returning after a season off and Nigel Kennedy leading the Red Raiders. I think that's just going to be one that everybody needs to make sure they tune into, and obviously as many games as possible over the weekend. Hopefully, I can get some Wi-Fi down in Puerto Vallarta, but maybe on the beach. We'll see.
Hey, that's number 2. The Puerto Vallarta challenge down in Mexico. Tara lounging at the pool, watching MLB Network, and also watching a couple matchups between Florida State and Oklahoma State.
Yep. Northern Colorado, Louisiana Tech. Those are the 4 teams that'll be down in Puerto Vallarta. But again, it'll start off with Florida State and Oklahoma State, and then ends again with a marquee matchup on Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Central in Puerto Vallarta. So just really, I'm really curious to see how Florida State, what they're going to look like. And again, Oklahoma State without Lexi Kilfoyle in the circle. So another big matchup, which will be available on Flow. So those that want to take a look at that can do that. And then I'll be there all weekend. So if you guys want to see anything from me, hey, let me know because I'll be there. There's Fang. Hey, Fang. Finally, I was wondering where he was.
Fang Nai. Hello, Gray and Tara. Finally got out of my meeting. Well, welcome. We have like 3 minutes left.
Yeah. Let me know what you all want to see from Puerto Vallarta. Food, the facility, the stadium. I know this will be my first time there, so maybe you can just see it through my eyes and visiting the Puerto Vallarta Collegiate Classic.
I can't wait to be, I don't even know where I'll be in Tucson. Spoiler alert, I'm going to Tucson. Shocker, I know. And Tara's going to text the group chat just like a picture of her on the beach on a chair.
With 10 screens up.
That's how many iPads are you allowed to fly with, Tara? Let's find out.
And the security guard. Yeah. It's going to happen.
All right. The third thing is the Candrea Classic. Always fun to go to Hillenbrand. I will be there. Brady Vernon will be there as well. You've got Alabama. You've got Arizona. You've got Washington, Western Michigan, Michigan State will also be there as well. A lot of fun games. The classic Big 12, Big 10 battle of Arizona, Washington, Alabama, Arizona on Saturday night is going to be a ton of fun. These are a lot of teams that have questions that are trying to figure out who they are very quickly. I know from the Alabama perspective, this weekend's important because next week you got Clearwater, and you got to, make sure everybody's solidified before you show up to the Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational presented by Evo Shield. Did I nail it? Maybe. And maybe. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And the Candrea Classic is I'm excited. It's always fun to be in Hillenbrand, and we'll see which of those teams can make a statement.
That stadium is really fun to play in. It's massive, and the ball flies out of the yard there in Arizona. So always fun to see who can hit a home run up on top of the roof. I think the last time I was there, Maya Brady hit one on the roof of the building in right field. But just can't say enough about Hillenbrand Stadium, about Arizona's facilities. I believe it won Facility of the Year last year, and what a great tournament to kick off the season. So anybody that's around there should head on over and watch some really good softball.
Yeah, come say hey to me, Tom, and Brady. But don't talk to me and Tom while we're on the air because we have to talk about the game and whatnot. Come up to us between innings or before or after, please and thank you.
Well, there's rules talking to Gray apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the amount of times at Rhodes will be the game will be happening and someone will come up to the window and go, "Hey, what a great play that was!" And we're like, "Sir, please let us talk. We're on the air. I don't know what to do, but we would love to see you."
We'll give you a big flashing on-air light.
Yes, I'm just gonna.
I'll give you the one I usually put on. There's a sailboat one that you can just stick on your sailboat if you don't have lights and you just like flashes. So I'll just get you one of those.
I used to have one. I don't know where. It went, but that's for another time. Let's wrap the show, Tara. What's on softballamerica.com right now? What's on the site?
Oh, I was saying at the top of the show, there's so much on the site right now. Obviously, the big news with Patty Gasso being named USA Softball National Team head coach. Brady's got bracketology. We didn't even dive into that. Maybe we'll do a separate show, but Brady's got his preseason bracketology up on the site. There's an incredible story on Reese Atwood by Nicole Reitz. And we've got our mid-major map, our podcast schedule, previews from the ACC, SEC, Big 12, and I believe the Big 10 is going to be up here shortly. But we've got all of those interviews with Sydney Supley up on the site as well. And, of course, player profiles. We've got loads of recruiting rankings and news and anything and everything you could want from, club all the way up to professional and international Olympic ball. So just excited with our staff. And we've got a big staff this season that will be helping us contribute. In Jason Ray, we've got interns Cooper and Grace as well joining us. And then, of course, we've got Gray and Tom, Nicole Mendez, Nicole Reitz, Sydney Supley, and then obviously our head of everything, Brady Vernon.
Is our king.
Yeah. Keeps me in line for sure.
Give him the crowd. Yeah. And also, Fang, you right. I heard horror stories on the struggles Brady went through to put together the bracket. He just randomly, again, I've mentioned this. I was at a bachelor party this weekend. I randomly get a text from Brady. It's like, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, of course it is. You're sending Alabama back to Knoxville for supers again. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, I got a phone call too about the driving. He's like, nobody's going to be able to drive. He is really upset. So just so you all know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And then there'll be a fun little preseason roundtable up on the site tomorrow. So the staff will be giving their predictions on a few burning questions heading in the 2025 season. So just loads of content up on the site.
Yeah, what outlandish thing will I say this year that angers a fan base? Whom's this to say, but something will probably be there.
Probably, because you do it every year.
Yeah, look, I have my takes, and I usually back it up with evidence that I firmly believe. I always back it up with evidence I firmly believe. Let's be real. I'm not just dropping stuff. But this year I've got some interesting things, and I can't wait to read what the rest of the staff has up, and you can read it too tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tara, happy opening weekend to you. Let's go. Softball's here.
Thank you all for being here. And hopefully if anybody's in Puerto Vallarta, come by and say hello, be watching all the games. And gosh, happy opening week. How cool is this?
I mean, this is the best. I wait. We all wait. Like, I mean, the group chat we're just hungry for softball, and it's here now. And that is a thrilling, exciting thing. And we cannot wait to go on this journey all season with all of you. Again, Good Morning Softball America every Monday at noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain. Hawaii, that's like 5 a.m.-ish.
Yeah. 6?
Yeah.
3 hours behind Pacific, right?
So 6, yeah. So it all works out. But Tara, I'm ready to go. Thank you for being a great partner and a great co-host and a great friend.
Thanks for setting this all up. Obviously, Gray puts together the rundown to make sure we stay on track. So just happy to be here. Happy to see my partner in Gray Robertson back to talk softball. And again, hopefully you guys can join us every week and really be a part of the show, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So again, hopefully any questions, comments, concerns, all that stuff, please let us know, because we're here for you. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your continued support. And by the way, I think that you're able to give some coins to our hosts. So hopefully there is a button on YouTube. So if you like what you're seeing, you're able to donate or send some money to our different hosts, and that will allow all of our incredible employees as well to be compensated for doing this great work, not only from us, but from all of you. So if you like what you see on YouTube, feel free to hook them up, because I think our podcasts are really, really fun. And I know how much work the staff does on each and every show.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And now we close. Look, I need money for tacos in Tucson this weekend. So Anything would be great. For my partner, Tara Henry, and for everyone with Softball America, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Good Morning Softball America. We'll see you next week, folks. Softball is here. Catch you next time.